All right, good morning. This is a Virtual PBX admin training, and Happy New Year. Just making sure everything is working properly here. And we'll give people another minute to get onto the page here or get their notifications. The training takes about an hour and a half, give or take. The variance usually is because I stumbled or I have to go back because I forgot something. So hopefully I'll avoid that. Generally speaking, the trainings are every Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We do record them, so they're here available on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back to them if you need to, or even just send links to other people who are going to be admins on your account. So you don't necessarily have to be here the whole time either. Right? You can always come back and watch the training later. All right, it's 10 o'clock, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Right here on the screen, you see our login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. Just look for the blue bar towards the top of the page, and you should see a login link there, as well as a link to the support pages. I do recommend bookmarking this page, just so it's easy to get to in the future. And to log in, we need your username, which is your email address. Each user has a unique email address in the system, so you can't reuse an email address for multiple people. Your password, which should have been emailed to you. And then lastly, the account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if for some reason you've forgotten this information, like your password specifically, down here towards the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have a forgot your info link. And you can click on that. It'll flip it over. We still need your email address. So one thing we have to have. Then we need one of the other two pieces of information down here. We need either the account name or the phone number. Right now, that phone number means that a phone number on the account. Right. Then you would click reset password. You'll get an email with a link that lets you go sign in essentially to change your password. Once you've changed your password, the system logs you back out, basically so you have a chance to click on the Remember Me box here. And then you click sign in. Now, I'm using a test account that I've logged into several times, so by default, it's sending me right here to the dashboard page. Now, for you, if it's your first time logging in, then you actually get taken to a different page. And I can get there by clicking up here on my name. And this is the account page. Now, also, that first time logging in, the dash wizard will pop up, right? Little pop-up boxes highlighting different things. The main thing here is on your user information page, right? This is where you would change your own password. Right? You can change other people's passwords on the user tabs, but for yourself, you need to change it here. You might change your time zone, etc. up here. Now, because I'm an admin, I also have this account level settings over here on the left. Right? You can change your company name. Now, if you change the account name, I do ask that you send an email to our billing team. They are things they have to update on their side to make sure everything syncs up properly. But generally, the main thing people change here is the time zone. Right? They can change it to an appropriate time zone for themselves. Now, as I mentioned, that this is a test account. On your accounts, you have additional information here on the left. Under User, under the section here, you'll have a billing section that will have things like your invoices. You can change your credit card information. You can edit who the billing contact is, right? The person who gets the invoices, and essentially the account owner. And you can even see your service plan. Now, once you're done with everything here, so under the account, the user, or the billing, you click close over here to the top right, and then you're back here on the dashboard. Now, on that first login, again, the dashboards will still pop up, right? Give you some highlights. So let's start up here at the top. Again, you can click on your name at any time, and that will take you back to that account page, and or you can get to the account section. Now, for many of you, right to the right here, you'll have a D&D toggle for Do Not Disturb. I do not have it because my user is part of an ACD queue. So for any user that becomes part of a queue, they will lose that D&D toggle at the top just because those two features don't work well together. We have a little question mark icon, right? The help icon. This has sub-tabs here. Learn more. This will open up a new tab in your browser and take you to directly to the support pages, so you can look at guides for specific features, which have screenshots. Some of the guides also have a video link to a YouTube video. Chat with us will open up the chat window, so you can speak to or chat with a support team member, and they can walk you through whatever feature you're working on. Oops. Down here, online store, that will open up a new tab and take you to store.virtualpbx.com. That's where you can order a VoIP phone, right, or a router, etc. Now, if you add a web phone device to your user, then you'll have a link here to the web phone in this blank spot here. So opens up a new tab, takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. That allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls through your internet connection. Here we got the hamburger or menu icon, right? 3 horizontal lines. This takes you to other features of Dash. We're primarily going to be here in the dashboard. That's where the most of the training is going to be, but we will be getting to these other features as well. Some of them, like ACD queues, for example, have fees associated with them, and I'll try to highlight anything that either requires to be on a specific plan or has an upgrade fee associated with it. And then lastly, we have the log icon. Right here, total users, these are the number of people on my account who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on per user, so each user you add increases your bill. Right. Then we have total devices. I have 36, and then that breakdown. So first up is a soft phone. Now, Dash was designed with VoIP service in mind, right? So voice over internet protocol, that's what VoIP stands for. A soft phone is a software application that acts like a phone, right? Soft phone. Now, it uses your internet connection, and it does require to be on a device, right? That can be a computer, it can be a tablet, it can be even a smartphone, right? Ultimately, the soft phone label here, this covers the Virtual PBX soft phone app as well as any third-party application you're using, right? So third-party, that means you can get a soft phone application from another company, right? So let's say you go to Counterpath. They're a company that has several different soft phones. You can use one of theirs with our service, for example. And the other thing that comes up under soft phone would be if you're using third-party soft phone credentials to program a physical VoIP phone. Right, next up we have cell phone. Pretty self-explanatory. Most of us have run into a cell phone in our lives. Then we have a web phone. Again, that's using Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. A web phone technically is a kind of soft phone. It was developed later on Dash. So that's part of why it has a separate heading. And then lastly, we have here SIP phone, right? So SIP is a kind of VoIP phone, right? So SIP is Session Interface Protocol, I believe. This is a physical device, right? Sits on your desk. You can pick up a handset, dial numbers from it, right? Or receive calls on there. Now down here, I have unregistered devices, and it's saying I have 3. Now, in this case, it's referring to my SIP phones. So all but 1 are offline, right? That's what unregistered means. The system cannot send a call to it. Next up, I have total numbers. These are phone numbers on my account. I have 20. Now, most of our standard plans include anywhere from 2 to 15 as part of your monthly plan price. So I'm paying an overage on 5 of my phone numbers every month. For the specifics for your plan, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. Option 4, if you call in, they can let you know how many are included in your plan and what the overage is if you're more than that. Then I have a breakdown here of assigned numbers and spare numbers. An assigned number means you're using it, right? Someone can dial that number and speak to somebody or leave a voicemail or be sending a fax or getting to a conference, right? Spare number counts towards your allotment, but I'm not currently using it. So for instance, let's say I had a promotion running through the new year. Well, New Year's is now several weeks behind, or a couple weeks behind us now, and I don't want to get calls on that promotion any longer and on that phone number. So I can put that phone number into spare. So now when people call it, they're getting a busy tone, right? So and that way my staff isn't wasting time on a promotion or call on a promotion that's no longer in effect. The other breakdown I have here is USDID and US toll-free. So US toll-free, that's actually US Canada toll-free, right? That's an 800 number, 888-877, all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So if you want a phone number in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, you can add a number and it'll show up as a USDID, right? Likewise, you can add a number in Miami, Florida, or Miami, Ohio, right? San Jose, California, etc. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you're interested in doing so, you're going to want to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. And they will need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number for. Some countries have restrictions or require documentation before they release a number, right? Others don't care. And basically, we get that information from you, right? Saying, hey, I want to, say a phone number for Munich, Germany, right? We go, okay, let's check with Germany. What do they require? We get that information and we send it to you, saying, hey, this is what they require. Once we get the documents from you, we can submit it, hopefully get approved, and then we can get a number for you. All right, conference bridges, I have two. That means I have given two of my users the ability to host or moderate a conference. Then we go over here to the right. This is my main number block. So these four numbers, they all behave in a similar fashion, right? They're all going to go to the same location in my system. They're all going to have the same main greeting, for example. Then I've got a conference number. So it's a 408 number. You can have multiple conference numbers if you want. They're all just going to the same place, right? They're all going to your conference rooms. And then you have a fax box number. You can only have the one main fax box number, but this is your inbound fax number, right? So if someone wants to send you a fax, or send me a fax in this case, right, they would send it to the 775 phone number. The company directory, this downloads a CSV file to your computer. It will have the people's names, their extensions, and I believe their VoIP devices. It's been a while since I've downloaded it. The soft phone directory, this is for use with the Virtual PBX desktop soft phone application. So you would download this file, upload it to the Virtual PBX desktop soft phone app, and then you can see the presence or the status of your other users who are using the soft phone app, right? So my boss could see right now that I've marked myself as busy, so he knows not to call me right now. Likewise, when we're done with this training, I can check and see, oh, my coworker Frank is available. I need to talk to him about a customer issue that he and I have been working on, right? Because I can see that he's not on a call. Now, for your users, you can have multiple devices on your user. The soft phone directory in the soft phone only shows the soft phone status, right? So if my colleague, say John, has a Yealink, a VoIP phone, as well as a soft phone, I'm only able to see if he's on the soft phone. I won't know if he's on his Yealink phone. Right, store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use within our online store. And then down here, we have the account realm. Account realm is used in a couple things. One, it's one of the key pieces of information to program a third-party soft phone, right? The other way it's used is for sending a fax out. So in Dash, sending a fax out is an email, right? So you create an email like you normally do. In the to field of the email, you put +, number 1, the area code and phone number you're faxing to, the @ symbol, and then you put in your account realm. And then you attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. Right, the system looks at the to field, right, to know where it's sending it to and where it came from. It checks your email address also to make sure you're a valid user, and then it looks at the attachment. Right, it doesn't look at the subject line. It doesn't look at the email body. It just looks at the attachment. So if you want a cover sheet, for example, you have to include that as part of your PDF, and just one attachment per email. Right. Then we have the caller ID. This is your company caller ID, your default for the account. This pull down doesn't show up properly on the streaming software, but you can choose any of your main numbers. Right. And then you have the company caller ID name, referred to as CNAME or CNOM. This lets you put in 15 characters, including spaces and special characters, that you want displayed as part of your company caller ID. Now, so I can go something like that. Now, once I click Save Changes down here at the bottom, that company caller ID name information, that gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. They will update their databases. That takes about 3 business days, give or take. Now, when you make an outbound call, right, say from your VoIP phones, right, this phone number by default gets transmitted, and this information, your company caller ID name, gets transmitted. And it goes through all the carriers to get to your destination. Something to keep in mind, though, is that not every carrier that your call can route through supports CNAME. Right? That's usually a small or regional carrier that don't support it. Right? Any big name carriers, they almost all do. Another thing to keep in mind is when you're calling a cell phone from a VoIP device, the cell phone carriers have very tight control about what they're having displayed on cell phones on their network. Like I use AT&T, for example, and if I want the CNAME information to show up on every call, I have to pay AT&T another like $10 a month. Right? I personally not willing to do that, so I don't get the CNAME information for everybody. Right? So in that particular case, making a test call to a cell phone not always the best idea when you want to test your company caller ID name information. All right, then we have the company emergency information, or E911. You just want to put an address here associated with this phone number. Every phone number can have its own address associated with it, and then every VoIP device, you can choose which address you associate the VoIP device with for E911 purposes, right? So that way, if your staff member picks up their VoIP phone to dial 911, the right address gets transmitted to emergency services. So any changes here, you click on Save Changes, and then the system will properly update. All right, hold music. Now, on dash, hold music on the system is defined as once a call has reached a user, right? So one of your staff members, and then that user presses hold on their VoIP phone. That is when hold music will play. Right? You can upload your own file. You just need to click upload and then click on browse. And on your computer, you just need to find an MP3 or .wav or .ogg file. Click the little up arrow icon here, and then click Save Changes. Right? So those 3 file formats are what the system will accept. You want to make sure that the file is under 1 megabyte in size and that it's recorded in mono. Right? Most phones still only 1 speaker by default. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, hours here is actually part of main number. So let's go ahead and just go straight to main number. All right, so up here at the top, we got your main company numbers. Again, these are those 4 numbers that we saw previously. If I decide I no longer want to use a number here, so let's get rid of this 877 number, for example. I would just click Unassign. Now, that 877 number isn't removed from my account, right? It's now a spare number, right? So it basically just means I'm not using it. I can reassign it to, say, one of my users or to another group, a ring group or a queue, etc. Now, if you want to add numbers, right? First, you have add from spare. So you can choose any of your spare numbers that are already on your account. You would just put a check mark next to it and click add selected. Or you can click by numbers. This will be adding a completely new number to your account. First up, toll free, right? You choose a toll free prefix. And then you click on the search button there. And the system is checking for available phone numbers. You would just click add. You see it was added to my cart. It has a number. I can remove it if I decide, oh wait, I like this other number instead. You can add multiple numbers too, right, if I wanted to. But then you click on by numbers. And that's just how the terminology the system uses to add a number to the account, right? I'm not instantly being charged for that number. It will just show up on my next invoice. And this is the system verifying that the number was truly available and then adding it and activating it to the account. Doesn't quite normally take this long. Not sure what's going on there. There we go. And so here the number is. You have a little, oh, sorry. Also, for local numbers, it's slightly different in that you need to know the area code that you're looking for. All right, so we can do, let's see, 408, that's San Jose. So there's still some San Jose phone numbers. I can click add and add a phone number. Now, what can happen, .310 is Los Angeles. That's actually the original Los Angeles area code, and there's none available. Now, you could email our porting team asking them to get an area code 310 phone number. The downside for that is we have no way to know when we're going to get one, or even if we're going to get one, right? 310 has been exhausted for quite some time. And basically, we're just waiting for someone to give up their 310 phone number in order for us to get that. So in this situation, your best option is to go back to search and do a search for an overlay or nearby area code. So 323 is one of the other Los Angeles area code or area codes. So I see there's numbers here that I could add instead. There's a little gear icon here next to each of the numbers. This is where you can adjust the caller ID, right? So each phone number can have its own outbound CNAM information if you want them to, as well as turning on the ability to have the inbound CNAM information come through to your staff members. All right. Likewise, E911, again, this is where you'd set up the address for each phone number. And prepend is a VoIP feature. So you can add text in front of the caller ID information that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones to give them a heads up about what the call might be about. Right, so I don't remember which number I clicked on here, but we can just call it, say, promo. Right, so now that word promo will show up as part of the caller ID information that shows up on my staff members' VoIP phones displays. So they know, oh, this is someone calling in about the promotion that we're running. Right, so they can have their specialized greeting for that promotion. Right, office hours strategy. So you can have, by default, new accounts are on 24-hour open office. If you go to custom office hours, for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark. And then in these boxes here to the right, you put your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Right, so I'm open 9 to 5. Also towards the bottom, you can choose if you're closed for lunch or not. And if you are, put a check mark, and then you have your lunch hours noted there. Next up, we have office holidays. First, you put a check mark if you're going to be closed for holidays. And then here to the right, you have add holiday. You have your options here for single day, date range, and advanced. Right, clicking on each one of these will create a new row. So first, you give it a name. Right, so Halloween, and then you select the month and the day. All right, for date range, I should have something here for, there we go, Xmas break. Again, start date, end date. Notice that there's no year indicator. So you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So you want to do like we have here. I have New Year's Eve by itself and New Year's Day by itself. And then lastly, this retreat, that's the advanced option where I'm saying is that the third Friday in May. Right, we're on holiday. Right, so you select the month. This middle pull down is offers you first through 5th as well as last, and then you choose your day of the week. And then you click on Save Changes. And then we come down to incoming call handling. Now, this is for these 5 or 6 phone numbers I have up here under main number. During my open hours, here are my options. Right, so right now I have calls going to my virtual receptionist. If I click on that, that's a link. And it shows my virtual receptionist, right? So on the left is my main menu. This is what people press on their phones to navigate through the phone system, right? So I have one going to my front desk, which is a ring group. And I know that just because of a little multiple people icon there, right? 2, I'm having go to Aaron, right? 3 is going to J test, right? These are individuals. Now, these are pull downs, so I can change it, right? So I can send it to a smart directory, right? Dial by name directory. These are other users on the account. I can send it to a call queue, right? So on my ACD queues. I can send it to a specific device. You just want to make sure that device itself has its own voicemail built into it. Otherwise, the person just can ring and ring and ring until they eventually hang up. Right? You can have it go to a media file, right? So like a greeting file can play, like hours of operation or directions. Just once that media file plays, the call ends. So something to keep in mind. Groups, you have ring groups, right? These are departments. Advanced call flows, these are for, say, submenuing, for example. Or you can send it directly to a voicemail box. You see the icon changed. Now, you have down here, add route. That allows you to create more menu options. It starts me off on default, and yeah, this pull down doesn't really like it too much. So we'll go ahead and just remove that. But you have 0 through 9 plus the star key, and you get the default route. Over here on the right, we have greetings and your greeting option types. So text to speech, right? You type in a greeting, you click update, save, and save changes. This is a computerized or robotic voice greeting. This is great for when you're just starting out. You're not sure how you're going to have the system route initially, or you have, oh, I have a couple of different ideas of how I want to do it. You probably want to start with text to speech, mostly because there's no charge. Now, a couple things to keep in mind about text to speech greeting. You're limited to 250 characters, not words, characters. Sometimes I've gotten above that, but not by a lot. Additionally, once you click update and save changes, the system uses the same file name for every text-to-speech greeting. Right? It doesn't allow you to change the name or customize the name of that greeting. Right? So in this case, it would be main menu open hours, right? main open hours menu TTS, right? So if I come back and change this an hour in the text-to-speech, it would have that same file name. So one thing to keep in mind is when you make a text-to-speech greeting, after you click save, go over here. You see it kind of grayed out right now, but the greetings tab, find that text-to-speech greeting you just created and change the name of it there. And that way you can flip back to it at any time. You can upload your own file. Just like hold music, you can use .wav, .mp3, or .ogg files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono and under 1 megabyte. You can choose from anything you've already added to the account. This includes hold music. So that's why you want to have like clear names so you know what everything is. You can record it over the phone. Now, for the first thing here is the system says pick up by phone, register to the account. What that means is a VoIP phone on the account. If you want to use your cell phone or landline, then under settings, right here where it says allow outside recording, you want to turn that on. Now you can call in with a cell phone or landline to record a main greeting. And then the other thing you need is this PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So this is my main open hours PIN number. So this would not work during my holidays, right? Or if I had custom office hours, it wouldn't work during after hours, right? Because each one of those has their own PIN number. So you can only change the main greeting during the appropriate time of day that you're on. The other thing we found out about the recorded over the phone is that the system overwrites an existing file, right? So if you just started with us, right, you don't have anything set up, then when you call your main number, the system will tell you that there's no greeting set up for this menu and then prompt you to enter the PIN number, right? Then you record over the phone, you're good to go. However, if you've been with us for a little while and you already have a greeting file in place and you call in and you enter the PIN number, the system will still let you record a new greeting. It just overwrites the file that is currently in place. So obviously, if you have a greeting that you typically use for most of the year, you want to make sure you don't overwrite that by accident. All right, next up, we have professional recording services. When you click order here, this will take you to a new website hosted by Snap Recordings, who we have partnered with. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have different versions of English, and they have French and Spanish, I believe, still. So you can do multilingual greetings. They have what they refer to as hold treatment. So hold, music and then a script being read. They deliver to you via email, and then you would simply upload your own file. All right, settings. So first up, we have number of retries on misdial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. The default is 1, meaning they get one retry, right? So 2 attempts. Right? So call comes in and they press 5. Right? That's not a valid option. So the system will then play the greeting again. Now, if they press 5 a second time, that's their last retry, right? Because they only get 1 retry. But then the system will send them to the default action, right? To the directory. Now, if you're getting hit by robodialers, if you get rid of the default action, now the robodialer, what you're doing is basically saying, hey, inbound caller, press a menu option or an extension number, right? Robodialers can't press buttons. They don't have fingers. So they get stuck here, your auto attendant, and eventually the call gets disconnected, right? Whereas your actual customers, people who actually want your service or product, they're going to press a menu option to speak to someone, and then you have less time wasted on those kinds of calls. All right, dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes the person is done, right? So in that sample where someone's calling and pressing 5, the system here is waiting for a count of 1, says, oh, they're done, and then determines, is that an extension? Is that a menu option? No, it's going to end call or send them back to a retry depending on where they are in that process. Right. Allow outside recording. We covered that for the main greeting. This allows you to call in using a cell phone or landline. By default, this is off, right, as a security feature. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. So this allows the inbound caller to enter the extension number if they know it. Right? If I turn this off, that means inbound callers can only press the menu options. And then suppress playing of invalid entry. By default, this is off. And what that is caller comes in and they press 5, right? And then they press 5 again. The system says, we did not recognize your entry. And in this case, the way I have the system set it up, the system would then say goodbye. Now, if I turn that on, the system won't even tell them that they hit, we didn't recognize your entry. It would just say goodbye. Any changes you make here under main menu greetings or the settings, you need to click save here. And under incoming call handling, you need to click save changes, right? You need to click save twice, essentially. All right, main conference number. You can add from spare or buy new numbers here, so you can have multiple conference numbers. Oh, wait. I should probably cover the other options. Sorry about that. All right, so second option here, this is a live operator answer option, right? So call comes in this case, I'm offering it to Aaron, and then it's going to the virtual receptionist. Now, we're still under open hours, so that virtual receptionist has the same settings that we were just looking at. So the main thing you're looking at here is who are you offering the call to, right? So you can offer it to any user, you can offer it to a call queue, you can offer it to a device, you can offer it to a media file. I don't recommend the media file just because that means your inbound caller can hear two greetings or the same greeting back to back, and that might cause confusion. You can offer it to a group or one of your advanced options, right? So if I offer it to a ring group, this is a group of people, right? So hopefully one of them can answer and then, transfer the call to the correct person. Third option here, call, again, offered to a user and then going to a specific voicemail box. And same basic options here, right? You can send it to a user, you can send it to a queue, a device, a media file, a group, one of the advanced call flows, and then you have this one here, which is skip to voicemail. Right? And you can choose which voicemail box you want to go to. Now, this particular option, right, I see most often under holidays for a very small business, right? A 1 or 2 person shop kind of thing. And then the last option here is incoming to an advanced call flow. An advanced call flow, this is for a secondary attendant or for submenuing, right? And this would only show up if you have those enabled on your account and active. All right, conference number, again, so you can add numbers from spare and by new. You can do a custom conference greeting. This is still a text-to-speech greeting, right? So still 250 characters. If you don't have this enabled, the system still says, welcome to the conference. Please enter your conference room number, and then it will prompt them for the PIN number, right? So the main thing you'd probably want to say is, welcome to ABC Cleaners conference rooms. Please enter the conference room number. And then your main fax box number, again, you can only have the one number. So if you don't have one assigned, you would either have, add from spare or by new. And then you have the edit fax box here. So up top, or the first option here, inbound fax notification email. You just want to put an email address in this field to the right. That email address gets a notification every time a fax comes through or is attempted, right? So if someone calls your fax box number, right, they hear fax tones and then they hang up, this email address still gets an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. right? Because as far as the system is concerned, someone did try to call your fax box number, right? But the fax didn't come through. In that case, it's because someone hit the wrong phone number. Right? Now, email permissions. This is where you would put your company domain, right? So everyone at your company has an email address that ends the same way, right? So at abccleaners.com. You would put that information here, click on Save Changes. That means any of your staff members can send a fax out via email without having to be a user on your Dash account. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, meaning some plans have it, other plans don't. This has two major use cases that we come across. First is submenuing, right? So you can have a call come into your virtual receptionist, and you say, for English, press 1, for Spanish, press 2. Right? Well, English and Spanish, you would then create under your auto attendants to have their own menus. Right? We have here, like I have here for Spanish, and I made it available in main menu. Now, up here at the top is where you create the new attendants. Right? You need to just give it a name and an extension number. Click on Create Attendant. Once an attendant is created, you click on the name and determine, do you want it to be available in a main menu, right? Meaning it's a submenu option, and it can show up in multiple places, or do you just leave it unavailable in main menu? That means it's a standalone attendant, like it's a separate business, like I have here for Poochwalk, right? Standalone. Attendants can have their own phone number, which would make sense if, say, Poochwalk is its own business, right? Then they would have their own phone number. Right? The extension number, your customers probably won't know this extension number. This is mostly for your staff. So if someone called in to Poochwalk and actually needed to talk to my cleaning company, right? They could then transfer to this other extension number for that attendant. And then you click on the little wrench icon here. And you see I have hours of operation and holidays. This information matches what we set up under main number, right? So any of your secondary attendants will have the same hours of operation as your primary attendant under the main number, right? And follow the same holiday schedule. And you notice they have only the option for the virtual receptionist, right? So you can have their own menu options, right? 0 through 9 plus star and default action. They can have their own greeting and their own settings. If this is something you're interested in, you'd want to talk to your account services team, or our account services team, excuse me, if you don't see the auto attendance menu option here. Next up, we have devices. Shows your devices on the account. Green means it is registered, meaning we can send a call to it and get calls from it. Red means it's not registered, so we can't send calls to it. You can actually also go down here. Oops. You can click off next to a device, and that will turn it to black. Adding a device up here at the top. First up is SIP phone, right? This is that physical VoIP device, right? Physical phone. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Now, some manufacturers have a lot to choose from. Others, not so much. But in all cases, for these various manufacturers, you find the make and model. The system, you give it a name, right? So Bob's phone. And then the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each phone, right? Usually a sticker on the back. Or if the phone is plugged in under like menu status or general information or basic information, there'll be a section for MAC. And that's the information you want to input here. And then you click on Create Device. The only other thing you need to do within Dash is assign that device to a user, right? So that way it's associated with somebody. However, on the phone, you need to log into that phone's web user interface. Basically, you get the phone's IP address, enter that IP address into your web browser on a computer that's on the same network that the phone is on. And that should allow you to log into the phone's web UI. And then you need to enter a URL into the phone's auto provisioning tab. Basically telling the phone, hey, go to this web page, get your config file. It will do so. It will reboot a couple times and then show up as a green device over here. For the specifics for these various manufacturers, you want to go to our support pages. On the right-hand side, you're looking, or you can do a search for auto provisioning phones. It's going to have the screenshots for these various manufacturers, and there'll be some settings that they'll want you to verify, and then the proper syntax for the URL for each of the manufacturers. All right, cell phone. Cell phone and landline are basically the same. You give it a name, right? So Mary's phone. And then in the number, put +1 area code and phone number, click on create device. Now, let's get to, turn this one back on. So this one actually should have that plus sign. Uh-oh. Well, all right, so let's get this to default settings here. All right, so when Dash sends a call out to a cell phone or landline, right, that phone will ring. You can then pick up. And by default, it says, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system that, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. Right? Then connects call, you begin speaking. If, however, you're using the cell phone or landline device to send calls to, say, an automated answering service, that automated answering service cannot press 1, right? Because it doesn't know how to, or it doesn't know when to, even. In that instance, I shouldn't have closed that yet. Then under advanced options, you want to click on this checkbox here for allow use of cell phone's voicemail. Then click on save changes. What that does is that tells the system that when we hear that pickup tone, to instead of saying, hey, press, asking the receiving person to press 1, it says, oh, we hear pickup tone, connect the call, right? So that's very useful for calls going to that automated answering service. Now, downside is if you're actually having calls, if you have that set up on your cell phone, right, that means your inbound caller can then end up on your cell phone voicemail. Some people like that. Some people do not. Sorry, for some reason, the system did not provide scroll bars. All right, so let's go back down here. Now, the other thing that comes up is the second one here, keep a regional caller ID. So by default, customer Mary is calling calling you, right? Comes in through the system. When it's going to your cell phone or landline, by default, the system shows customer Mary's phone number, and you don't recognize it, and you're tired of hearing about your extended auto warranty. So what you can do is you can uncheck this. So now when customer Mary calls you, you won't see customer Mary's phone number. You'll see your main company phone number. Right? So if we go back here, oh wait, sorry. Right? Whatever phone number you select up here, that's the phone number that would show up on your phone's display. So hopefully you would recognize your work phone number or your business phone number. And then you would say, oh, I want to take this call. All right, next up we have the option to add a soft phone. Now, first up is this little warning message here. You should read this at least once, but basically it's because of wireless VoIP technology. On a soft phone, you may not want to dial 911 from it because you might not be at the location that the VoIP phone thinks you're at, because you can move around. Now, adding a soft phone on the devices page will default you to a third-party application. All right, so you give it a name. You then would copy the SIP username, and if you click on the SIP password box, or reveal your SIP password, you'd want to copy and paste that to your device, or at least to like a document, and then you want to copy and paste the realm. Right, those are the three pieces of information you would need to program that device, and then you click on Create Device. You can also add the web phone here. However, the web phone won't work until it's assigned to a user. So you can give it a name and click on Create Device, but it's ineffective until you assign it to a user. All right, here's the Greetings Manager. Shows all your greetings on the account. You already see here I have a main open hours menu TTS, file name, and I probably have at least one other one down somewhere. Or maybe I don't. How? Now you can upload new greeting files here, right? You just give it a name, you click browse to find a file on your computer, then you click on create greeting. It will upload it and add it here to the system. You can download any existing greeting, and this will download to your computer, so then you can listen to it and see if it's still relevant. And then you click on the menu icon, or the wrench icon, excuse me, and change the name of the greeting. Or to the right, delete it if you know it's no longer relevant. All right, next up we have groups, sometimes referred to as ring groups or hunt groups. All right, basically a department. Up here at the top, you click Add Group. You give it a name and an extension number. And then you click and drag the staff members that you want to be in the group and click on Create Group. Once a group's created, you can click on their name. You can change the name at any time. And then you have the group call attempts. Right? Basically, how many times are you telling the system to offer a call to this group, to the members of this group, I should say. You have little arrow icons here, so you can change that up or down as necessary, then click on Save Changes. Here we have the members box, and I need to add users here apparently. All right, so we'll add these people, and I'll remove that deleted person. And actually at this point, I should save changes, right? So I don't want to lose the fact that I've added people and removed a deleted user. Now, along the top here, these are timestamps, and this last one here you can edit. Right, the default for a group is 120 seconds. You can edit that as you see fit, and then you can click Distribute. So now my calls that come in will ring my staff members in this order every time. Now, these are sliders. So I can set up something, oops. Like this. I'm setting up blast ringing or ring all. Right, so now call comes in, it rings everybody from the beginning to the end until one of my staff members picks up. Now, as you noticed, you can click and drag people, right? So you could actually change the order around, and then I can click distribute again, right? So now Peter's first. And then click on save changes. Groups can have multiple extensions if you want them to. Just add an extension number. Any place you can add an extension, like even on an auto attendant or a user, I recommend that if you're changing extension numbers, add the new extension first, and click on save changes, and then remove the original extension number. Seems to work better for most people. Groups can also have their own phone numbers. You can add from spare or buy new. Just bear in mind that any group that has a phone number, this phone number is available 24/7, right? It's not going to pay attention to your hours of operation, right? Because your hours of operation only refer to calls going through the virtual receptionist or your auto attendants. This is not going through those. And then we've got the group features box. First up is ringback. If you click enabled, or actually, okay, so if you leave it on disabled, this means when a call comes in to your ring group, right, the inbound caller will hear the sound of ringing as soon as we get that back from whatever user or devices we're ringing out to, right? So in this group, we're sending it to Peter first. So once Peter's phone starts ringing, right, and sends that tone back to us, that's what your inbound customer hears. Now, if you enable this, instead of hearing that ringing sound, right, so once Peter's phone's ringing and that sound's getting transmitted back to your inbound customer, instead of having that ringing sound, you can upload your own file, right, or select an existing file. Or upload .wave.mp3.ogg recorded in mono, and then click Save Changes. Now, if for some reason Peter's phone doesn't ring, right, because he's the first person in order here, and we're not getting that ringing sound back for him, the media file will not play, right, because the media file replaces that ringing sound. So we have to get that ringing sound first before the media file plays. It's a little confusing. Then we have next action. So if none of your staff members picks up, what do you want the system to do? Right, so first you enable it, so you have to have that option, and then you have a pull down here of you can send it back to the virtual receptionist. You can send it to one of your secondary attendants. You can send it to a call queue. You can send it to a specific phone. You can send it to a specific user, or send it to a specific voicemail box. And then click Save Changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding, meaning they're not going to be at their phone that they're normally using. Right, so say your staff member Angela has an important meeting with her accountant to get her taxes done, but she still wants to be able to get taxes because she knows she can have some time in between where she could take a call. Then if you enable this, she can then forward calls that were going to her VoIP phone, for example, to go to her cell phone. And then caller ID prepend, this is for your VoIP phone users. You click enabled, and you can add text or numbers that will show up as part of the caller ID for your VoIP phone users on their VoIP phone's displays. All right, next up we have numbers. This shows all your numbers on the account and where they're going. Right, you got the little gear icon here, so you can always update caller ID, etc. And we're on the numbers in use tab here. Spare numbers, right? These are the numbers you're not currently using. Now, like I have over 20 phone numbers on my account. Let's say I want to reduce my bill a little bit, and I know I'm not going to use some of these numbers any longer. So then I can click on a little box here in front of the number, and now I have the option to delete. Right? So I just click delete. It says, are you sure? It says they've been deleted, and now I have less numbers on my account, so I've reduced my bill a little bit. You can always buy numbers here, right? Local and spare, or toll-free, and it will add them directly here to your spare number list, so then you can add from spare at other locations. You have the option here to port a number. This begins the porting process. Right? You would click on new port request. You give it a name, choose US local or toll-free, click next. Then you need to upload a copy of your bill in PDF format and acknowledge that it is within the last 30 days. The system will then ask you to input your address and include the phone number or phone numbers that you wish to port. I will ask you to download a blank LOA, letter of agency, and then give you the opportunity to upload a completed and signed LOA. And then it asks you, I believe, there's 4 checkboxes it wants you to check, and then you submit the port request. The LOA, right, letter of agency, it asks for information like your company name, your company address, etc. That information should match what your current carrier has on file for that phone number. Right, so if you're porting from AT&T to Virtual Pbx, whatever AT&T has on file for your company name and that address, that's what you should put on the letter of agency. Right, obviously, if you're porting from multiple carriers, you need to have multiple LOAs, so there'd be different port requests. The LOA does need to be signed. Now, that can be a digital signature, that's fine, but simply typing your name twice will cause a rejection and a delay in the port getting completed. Generally speaking, toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days to port if everything is correct. For local numbers, that can be anywhere from, it averages about 2 to 3 weeks. Like some port requests have completed in 1 business day, but that's not very common. All right, users, shows all the users on your account. The person with the blue suit icon, they are system admins. Right? The gray people are just your standard users. Up here at the top, that's where you would add a user. Not quite sure why it's taking this long to load. There we go. And you basically fill out the form. Now, first and last name, pretty easy. The email address used for login, as I mentioned at the top, that needs to be unique for each user. Right? Every person has their own email address. You can't share the same email address among multiple staff members, or at least among multiple users on the account. You create a password for your users, and then you select an extension number. And you can enter in anything you want here. Now, by default, the system will automatically create a voicemail box for the user. That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. Right? So let's say you add the user, and then I added a VoIP phone directly to this person right off the bat. That staff member can then pick up the VoIP phone, dial *98, and that will take them directly to their voicemail box. The system will prompt them to create a PIN number for their voicemail, as well as then walk them through creating a voicemail box greeting. Those are the advantages of leaving that checked. All right, here's your option to include a person in the user directory or the Smart PBX directory. Here is the option to send to an alternate address. So by default, when you create a user, all emails go to the email address used for login, right? So like your voicemail notifications, password reset, all of that goes to this email address you use for login. If however, you want to send those to a different address, then as an admin, you would click on this box and then enter the address that you want those emails to go to. And then this one here at the bottom, which I think is important, send credentials to the user. So if you only need to create one user, you just click on create user. If you have to add multiple people, you have create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. Right, you can change their name. Here's their credentials, so you can change their credentials. So you can change their email address and password. You also have the option here to send the password reset email to that user. Here you can change the PIN number temporarily for a user. Again, for your VoIP phone users, that first time they can just call in and set it up themselves. For your cell phone or landline users, you would definitely want to do that. Here's your option to send to an alternate address, or I can turn it off. And then here's the option to include in the user directory. Over here, this pull down, you can change a user to be an admin or an admin to a user. This second pull down is the account time zone. And then this one here is the display language. The display language within the web pages here. So you have English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout by default is 20 seconds. Now this user has follow me calling enabled, so that's not something they can adjust here. 20 seconds is typically plenty of time for calls going to a VoIP phone or a landline. To a cell phone, you'd want to increase it to 45 seconds. And that's simply because it takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does to a landline. Right, users can have multiple extensions if you want them to. They can also have their own phone numbers. And again, just like under the ring groups, right, this phone number is available 24/7. So that's something to be aware of, especially if you have users who have their personal cell phone numbers. Devices, again, you can add devices to users directly. Now, let's see if I can. Let's go back to Aaron. Oh, wait a minute. All right, so the main thing I want to show is for the soft phone. On the user page, right, it looks the same except for this thing at the bottom here, where it says use third-party application. You can click on that and say use Virtual Pbx application. Now, for the Virtual Pbx soft phone, it's associated, can only be associated with one email address. So that's why I have this error saying, hey, this one's already provisioned to, or this email address is already associated with the user. So in that instance, then you can oops. That's one of the instances you'd want to use send to an alternate address. If, for instance, you have people who if you have multiple accounts with us. But let's go through the process here. Hopefully that one will work. Well, so basically, if you have an email address that's not already being used by a soft phone, you would click here where it says use third-party application. You give it a device name, right? And then it'll say use Virtual Pbx application. You click on create device, and then you click on save changes. Once you click save changes, your user gets an email with their user information, right? The login, the username and password to log in to the cell phone app, as well as download links to download the app to, say, their cell phone. For the web phone, you can see Aaron has a web phone already assigned to him, right? But that would be, you just give it a name and click on create device and save changes. So the web phone, Aaron can now go to webphone.virtualpbx.net on Chrome using Chrome or Firefox, and we'll have a login page. The login information he uses is the same as his Dash login information. Right, so same email address he uses to log in with, same password. And then we have the user features. So caller ID number is only for users who have their own phone number. Once you click that, you select a phone number that they have and click on save changes. What this means is now whenever Aaron makes an outbound call, his outbound caller ID is his 775 number here. Right? If I turn that back off, right, now when he makes an outbound call from, say, his web phone, his outbound caller ID is going to be the 408 number under the dashboard, right, under the main company caller ID. Call forwarding. So your users can enable call forwarding themselves. They can do that on the user portal, and they would just enter +1 area code and phone number. As an admin, you also have the option to enable failover mode. That means when the system detects that their VoIP phone has become unregistered and a call happens to come to that user, it will automatically forward to the phone number you designate. Right? Cell phone or landline, typically. Hot desking. This is a VoIP phone feature. You create a hot desk ID, and you can up to you if you want to have a PIN number required. What this is, or what the most common use comes across is in, say, like a hybrid scheduling where people are only in a couple of days a week. Right? So say it's Tuesday, I came into the office, I sit down at a desk, there's a VoIP phone, I pick it up, I hit *11, that turned on hot desking on that phone, and then asks me for my hot desk ID, and then tells me that calls will now be sent to this device. So now for the rest of my workday, right, calls that are coming to my user, whether I'm in a group, a queue, calls going directly to my extension, they're going to ring at the phone that I'm sitting at. End of my day, I pick up the handset, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking. Say the next time I come into the office is Friday, right? Find a desk, an open desk, right? Because I probably didn't get the same desk I sat at Tuesday. Sit down, same process. Pick up the handset, *11, hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls. Voicemail box. Again, this voicemail box was created with the user, and this is a typical standard or default setup. And so what happens is when this user gets an email or voicemail, right, they get an email and the system automatically attached an MP3 file to their email. So they can just double click on their computer, for example, and listen to the message. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, the voicemail box is full and will not accept any more voice messages. To avoid having a full voicemail box, you may want to do this one here. Put a check mark here. Allow me, there we go. Right, this is basically delete the message from the database after the notification's been sent. So call comes in, person leaves a voicemail. Aaron here gets an email saying, hey, here's your voicemail message. That email includes like the date, the time, the phone number, etc. And then it will have that attachment that he can listen to. With delete after notification enabled, that means the system then deletes the voicemail from the system, so his voicemail box never gets full, right? Mostly because computers have quite a bit of storage these days, so easy to store voicemails long-term there. Transcription. This is actually a plan-specific feature. Basically, the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out as best it can in the email notification. Faxbox, you can decide to have users have their own Faxbox if you want them to. Now, I recommend if you do so, that you select a new phone number for them. That way the user can both send and receive faxes. If you leave it like this, where he only has an extension number to fax to, he can only receive faxes. He's not going to be able to send out a fax because when he tries to, right, the system looks up his email address, goes, oh, this is your user. You already have a fax box enabled. I'm using that information for your fax box to send the fax out. And in this case, that means it's using 399 as the outbound caller ID for that fax. Now, that's not a valid caller ID, so the fax will fail. So that's why you would want a phone number. And in this instance, when faxing to an extension, right, your inbound person who's sending you a fax, they have to call your main number, right? That goes to the virtual receptionist. After the greeting, right, they enter 399, then they click send fax, which is workable on a physical analog fax machine. For an electronic fax service, some of them may not allow you to fax to an extension, right? They may not have a provision to add an extension number after the fact. Conference bridge. Once you enable it for a user, the only thing you really need to decide is what their personal conference PIN number is, and then click on Save Changes. Your users can change their PIN numbers themselves in the user portal. Follow me. This is for users with multiple devices, and this allows you to control which devices they ring and in which order. Up here, that's your total ring time, 120. I can change that down to 60 if I wanted to. Let's go back here. Now, don't know why that didn't save. That's really strange. I had encountered that before. I'll have to do some testing on that. Anyhow, so by default, when you first enable Follow Me Calling, it looks like this. The system wants to know what devices do you actually want the calls to go to, right? So you uncheck the devices you want that user to use. You can click Distribute. Kind of like ring groups, you can change the order. And then click Distribute and then Save Changes. Music on hold. You can have users have their own hold music if you want them to. You just click Enabled, upload a .wav, .mp3, .ogg file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Again, this will only come into play when they press hold on their web device. Customized call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this. Basically, the system wants to know what kinds of calls do you want recorded. Right? Inbound internal, coworker call. Right? Coworker Bob gave me a call. Inbound external, that means call came in from my customer to one of my users. Right? Inbound to the system from an outside source. Right? Outbound internal, I called coworker. Outbound external means I called a customer back. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, every account includes some amount of storage as part of your plan price. It's on the plan pages, but you can also check with our account services team. If you go over that amount, then you're billed an overage on a per gigabyte basis. And for that, you'd want to double check with the account services team, as that has changed quite a bit over the years. One thing to know about your storage, if you have a AWS account, right, Amazon Web Services, you can link that to your Dash account, and so have your call recording stored there versus with us. And then you have an option to put a user on Do Not Disturb, meaning that calls to them are going to voicemail or are not offered to them if they're in a queue. Voicemail boxes, you see all the voicemail boxes on the account. If they have a name under their user column here, then that means that that voicemail box was created with the user, right? Use your voicemail box. Otherwise, you can create new voicemail boxes. You just need to give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. You click on Create New Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, if you click on the wrench icon, right, you can always review the voicemail box number and PIN number. But if you go to Advanced, first you want to look at the greeting media. You can upload a file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono. Right? If you go back to basic settings, if I put a PIN number here, then I can call in and record it over the phone. So then after you get a media file in place, then you want to add a recipient. Now, for your user voicemail boxes, right, they have a recipient built in. So this for the main voicemail box, right, I would add, say, support at virtualpbx.com. And then if I wanted to add additional people, I would click Add. Otherwise, I click Save Changes. So now that if I have a greeting media file in place and a recipient in place, I can go to Options and then click on Already Set Up. And then here's where you have the options for delete after notification, as well as attach messages to the email. Advanced routing, direct inward system access. For new accounts, this feature is not enabled by default. That's something you would have to add on. You'd have to actually email our account services team in order to get this enabled. But what this is allows you to use a cell phone or landline to call into the system and then log in and then make an outbound call. And then when you make that outbound call, it's not your cell phone number that shows up, it's your main company number. All right, so I would first enable this on the account. And now it assigns a PIN number. I recommend if you click Edit Settings, add an extension number and make that extension number different than your normal extensions, right? So if most of my extensions started with 1000, right? Like I started with 1000, 1001, etc. I would make this start with, a different sequence. So now what this does, it has two pieces of information a person needs to know to make an outbound call on your system, right? So first, you pick up your cell phone, you call your main number that goes to the virtual receptionist. That has allow dialing extensions enabled, right? You hear the main greeting. You enter in this extension number, right? Then the system prompts you to enter in the PIN number. You'll hear dial tone. Then you enter in the area code and phone number you're making a call out to. You call that person, you call your customer, right? You talk to them. Your customer sees your main phone number, right? So in this case, that 408 number we have on the dashboard page under the company caller ID instead of your personal cell phone number. Now, the reason I have these, say you want to add that extension number and make it different is because if someone figures out your PIN number and the extension number, then they can make outbound calls on your account and you won't know about it right away. In fact, most people probably wouldn't notice that until they got their bill where they had a huge overage, right? That's why it's not enabled by default on new accounts, as it's a possibility of you being defrauded. I'm disabling it because I don't want it to show up as a feature, as being available at all. Now, next up we have our call logs. Call logs show your call history on the account. Click on this month. So the little yellow arrow to the left, that's an outbound call. I can click on it and see that Mike here used his VoIP phone to make an outbound call and to which number he dialed. Right, the green arrow to the right, that's an inbound call coming into the system. And then you can see what devices they were going to. The little fire hydrant icon here, this creates an email that will go to support@virtualpbx.com. In that email, you're going to want to type in what happened. So like you had one-way audio or your phone actually didn't ring, etc. You can download these files. It's just a CSV file, right? You can set your custom date range. For the reports, you can go back 1 year. After that, our engineering team can go back an additional 6 months. Beyond that, we're not able to recover data. So if having that call information is important for you, especially for like compliance issues, then I would recommend doing so every month. If you have heavy call volume, you might have to go week by week because sometimes heavy call volume call logs take forever to load. Then we've got the feature codes, right? I've already talked about this one, for example. Here are the call forwarding codes up here. Now these are also available on our support pages. You can do a search for feature codes. You can also, there's a document also called Phone Commands Cheat Sheet. It's a single page PDF that has also a brief explanation of how to make use of these feature codes. All right, so that's all been the dashboard. Let's go over to ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. This is a call center feature. It's an add-on feature. So it's available. So ACD queues are available on some plans. And even on those plans, it's an additional cost on top of those plans. We also have ACD queues Pro, which again, like the standard, available on some plans, and it's an add-on per queue on those plans. If this ends up being something you're interested in, you're going to want to talk to our account services team to verify the pricing. Right here is where you would create a new queue. I'm just going to click on the little wrench, the gear icon here. So you give it a name, and then a queue can have either a phone number or an extension. One or the other, can't have both. Then you have the routing strategy. Unfortunately, the pull down is not working. This is how calls are offered to your agents or your staff members. This one is set up for round robin, so it's going to equalize out over time. You also have the option for most idle, meaning whoever's been waiting for a call the longest gets the next call. Then there is least offered, so the least amount of offered calls. And then there's least calls, which is least amount of connected calls. And I think that's it. Then you have hold treatment. So you can choose one of your music files, or you can upload your own. Now on the Pro queues, you have more hold treatment options, right? You can announce the position in line, announce the expected wait time. You can have multiple or different greeting media files play, or hold media files play, right? You can have different music, you can have a script being read, etc. Right, queue timeout in seconds. This is how much time people can wait, your inbound callers can wait on hold. The queue call limit, 0 means that there's no limit. But like if I put 4 here, that means only 4 people can wait on hold. Now, that would be on top of anyone who's already speaking to my staff members. Timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means that if I have no staff members logged in and a call comes into this queue, the system will treat that call as if they already hit the timeout. All right, then you have the escalation call flow after timeout. Basically, where are you sending the call after that 3,600 seconds? All right, you can send it to a particular user. You can send it back to your main menu. You can send it to a group, one of your auto attendants, etc. And then the 0 out call flow, this allows the inbound caller to press 0. And if they do so, where do you want to send them? Agent behavior. First up, we have agent recovery time measured in seconds. Basically, how much time after a staff member is done with call before the queue offers them a second call. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, that means if a user misses a queue call, the system puts them in away mode until that user marks themselves as ready. And then agent connect timeout, measured in seconds. The default is 20 seconds because in queues, you're only able to take calls with a VoIP device, right? Soft phone, VoIP, SIP phone, or web phone. Right, so once you've created queues, then you go over here on the left, click on members. And these are all my staff members who are allowed to be in a queue. If I click on manage members, I can select someone and move them over. And so now Mike is part of my queue team. If I go back to the queues, I click on a queue here. I can add agents and I can add Mike to this queue. Now, once your staff members are assigned to queues, right, they'll have this little ACDQ icon here. They get to this page and then they click on begin session. And you notice I'm actually in all of these queues. So they all change to 1. And I'm currently in away mode. So that first time I log in, I want to click on this little phone icon here and then select my device. And then once I'm ready to take calls, mark myself as ready. So now I'm green, which means I'm ready to take calls coming into the queue. Right? Red means I'm marked away. Blue means I'm on an inbound queue call. Yellow means I'm on an external call, right? So something outside of the queue. And then I believe it's gold means I'm on a wrap-up time. Unfortunately, accounts can only have either standard queues or pro queues. They can't have both, so I'm not able to show you those. However, on our YouTube channel, we do have a demo of the pro queues. So I would encourage you to check that out. All right, next up we have Blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are not allowing to connect to your system. So you would click on Edit Blacklist. You would click Add if you don't already have one, or you click on an existing list. You would give a list a number, and then the first option here is, are you blocking anonymous callers? That means if the system is not receiving valid inbound caller ID, the system will then say, oh, you're not allowed to connect to us, and then you get busy tone. Or that inbound caller gets busy tone, I should say. Beyond that, you would click here to add number. You put +1 area code and phone number. And for each phone number you add, that means those are phone numbers that aren't going to be able to connect to your system. Right? So you keep adding phone numbers until you're done. Then you would click on Save. You go back to Settings, and you want to make sure that list is on the right-hand side under Selected. Right? Then you would click Update. So now every phone number that's on this list, if they try to call any of my numbers on my account, they get a busy tone. Right? They're not getting through. Right. Dynamic caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your staff members when they're using their VoIP phones. So you would create new rule, and I'll go ahead and edit this first one here. And in this one, right, that I've named 408, I'm saying, hey, whenever my staff members dial a 408 phone number from their VoIP phone, automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 408 phone number. And then save changes. This other option here is I can create a feature code, so *550, and I recommend making use of a star and then 3 digits. So that way, so my staff member picks up their VoIP phone, they enter *550, area code of phone number they're reaching out to. The system sees that feature code and says, oh, change the caller ID to this 323 area code phone number. Right, an LA area code phone number. So that way it looks like a local phone number. The fax manager, again, that's an included service. You can see your inbound faxes, right? The date, the time, the number it came from, number of pages. You can download that file. You can also delete them here. Outbound faxes, again, you select the fax box. You can see the date, the time, right? The sending phone number you should recognize because that should be on your account. And then the receiving number is where you're sending it to. Now, if you see a failure, you would click on the little icon here, or there's another icon farther over that can give you, that might give you some technical details. The email to fax logs, if you see anything here, there'll be a little eyeball icon you can click on, and that will give you details. Like one of the most common things we see is someone used their personal email address instead of the work email address to send a fax. Sometimes people forget to include the attachment, or they attach the wrong kind of document. So the email to fax logs, that means the system had a problem processing the fax request, right? If you see a failure under outbound faxes, that means the system had trouble reaching the other phone number, right? Got a busy tone, right? Or they got connected and then a strange tone came back, so ended the fax prematurely, something of that nature. All right, Monitor is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to see your status of your staff members. And this would, like under this case, this is everything for employees. So I can see what their status is. It doesn't matter what phone they're using, right? I can break it down to see which devices are in play. Right? I can see who's available, who's busy. Over here, right, I can see the active inbound calls. And I can see if there's any calls that are parked. And for the parked calls, I can see the parking spot number. Number Manager, that's an included feature, shows your spare numbers, right, numbers in use, etc. So you can bind, etc. The Recording Manager probably is not going to show up. This will typically takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, so you can see your call recordings, download them or delete them. If you have your AWS account linked to it, this link would then show you what's on AWS side, so you can navigate through that. Reports, this is advanced reporting. We do have an advanced reporting demo on our YouTube channel. I encourage you to take a look at that. This allows you to create your own reports. So to give you a better idea of what's going on with calls that are coming in and out of your system. In some ways, it's easier than the call logs. But this is a plan-specific feature. So if it's something you take a look at the demo, so you can decide if that's something you would want, and then you can then talk to our account services team. Voicemails. This is a voicemail manager. You can get to any voicemail box on the account, and you would see like the date, the time. You could listen to the voicemail box or the voicemail message. Right, you can download it. Click on the box in front of it. As an admin, you can then move it to a different voicemail box, or you can say keep it as new, mark as listened, etc. Webhooks, also a plan-specific feature. You would actually want to talk to our sales team. I believe they still have the information on this. This allows you to link Dash to other software. If you want to see examples of what we have done, you can go to developer.virtualpbx.com. It's going to have code there, basically see what we've done to link Dash to other software. And then we have the user portal. Every user has their own user portal. As an admin, you cannot get to anyone's user portal, right? But that's because you can get to everything else, right? So voicemails, I have delete after notification enabled on my user, so that's why I don't have any here. All right, call history, I can see my call history. I can change the date range. So I can go from December, and I can see the calls that I had. Faxes, I don't have enough of my own fax box, so nothing shows up there. The contact list, this is all your Dash system information, right? Your standard users aren't going to be able to add to this, right? So like your sales staff won't be able to add their contacts, right, or their client list here. The conference tab, this is where your users would update their PIN numbers over here to the right, and this page is really squished. Sorry about that. But here's the moderator PIN number change, and then their participant PIN number. And then they have the options to, are people coming in muted or deafened, as well as playing entry and exit tones. When your staff members are in a conference, right, as moderators, right, they can invite other Dash users to a conference. They can lock a conference. They can mute everybody, unmute everybody, and they can end the conference call. And also, while they're in a conference, they can mute a specific participant as well as kick out a specific participant. And then the settings and devices tab. This is where your users would enable their own call forwarding and put in +1 area code and phone number and click on save. And that is everything. I'll take us back to the dashboard here. Sorry about the connection issues here. I'm not sure why I had some problems loading. But I don't see any questions in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and end the training since it's already gone a little long. But we'll be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.